Hey, New Life. Do you know that we have the opportunity to sanctify God in our work and by our work? We have the opportunity to invite His presence into our work and even demonstrate our relationship to Him by how we work. When I was younger, one of my favorite books was a small little book entitled Practice of the Presence of God. It talked about this medieval monk in a monastery who worked in the kitchen. He had this prayer: Lord, make me a saint by washing dishes and cleaning pots. He understood that by his work, he actually was able to sanctify God, that he could invite God's presence even into the most menial tasks. I want to talk to you about work today, but I want to do so by talking about rest. A few years ago, I was leading a group of college students through the land of Israel. And on a Friday afternoon, right before the Jewish Shabbat started that night at sundown, I had this group of students meeting with an Orthodox Jewish man who was talking to them about the Sabbath. He described for these students how on Friday night, his family would get cleaned up and they would wear a nice white shirt and they would walk as a family to the synagogue. They would come home and around the table, they would share with one another. There were no iPhones, there were no tablets, there were no computer, no internet, no television. It was a family sitting there focused on one another. Of course, they're praying the Sabbath blessings, so they're inviting God into that family event and into that family experience. He said, Saturday morning, we will get up and we'll go back to the synagogue, but then we'll come back home, have a small bite of lunch, and then we rest. Again, family together, no internet, no phones, no computers, no television, family together. Of course, Saturday night, then, with the ending of the Sabbath, they find themselves rested and ready to face the week ahead. Within Judaism, within the Bible, observing the Sabbath is about sanctifying God in time. Of course, if I had had a video camera, I'm sure I would have seen some of these students even drooling, because as they listened to this individual talk about a 24-hour period of rest, quiet, family, connection, they realized that our world today drives those things out of our lives. I mean, how many of us, when we get to Monday, we're almost ready for a week to get past the busyness of our weekend, and we don't connect in our families, and we don't connect with our jobs, and we don't bring God into those moments. If I were to ask you, where did Jesus learn his faith and piety? Some may say, well, he went to the synagogue. Others may say, no, it was when he would go on pilgrimage to Jerusalem, there in the temple. Both answers would be wrong. Why? Because the home was the center of Jewish life and learning. The home was where you learned how to pray. The home was where you learned how to obey the commandments. What were the commandments? How to submit to God and his commandments. Often in the home was also where you learned a trade. You learned both the scripture and how to work in the home. But then came the Sabbath, and the rhythm of the week was built around the Sabbath. It's rest, it's quiet, it's family. The center of the Sabbath was not the synagogue. It still isn't. The center of the Sabbath is the home. It's that family connectedness. It's that coming together, putting aside all the distractions, and as a family unit, inviting God into this and sanctifying him in time. When I lived in Jerusalem for 7 years, I looked forward to every Friday evening. In Jerusalem, a horn sounds across the city, ringing in and heralding the coming in of the Sabbath. In the moments leading up to it, you can feel the city take in its collective breath. And once the horn sounds, peace descends. It's really hard for us to sanctify God in our work when we don't sanctify him by creating moments of rest in our lives. We have the opportunity to demonstrate our relationship to God in our places of work by how we work, by inviting his presence into our work. But it's in our families, in our homes, where we can truly attest and sanctify him through our rest within time. In Exodus chapter 20, where we find the 10 Commandments, God told the children of Israel, remember the Sabbath day to sanctify it. 6 days you're going to work, but the seventh is a rest, a day of rest for the Lord your God. And it's not only for you, it's for your sons and your daughters, your servants, your maidservants, your animals, and even the stranger in your gates. Why? Because God made the earth in 6 days, but he rested on the seventh. If God rested, so should we. One of the greatest realizations that I learned living in Israel and traveling there as much as I have, and being around the Jewish community, is the fact that the rhythm of their week and the rhythm of their lives are anchored around this day of rest, something that a religious Jewish family holds very sacred. They don't let things push their agenda away. They don't let them push to the sides their rest and their connection as a family. And because of that, you ask any Jewish person around the world, what is the secret to family, to passing on values from generation to generation, for even their work and work ethic? Everyone will say one word: Sabbath, rest. Because that's where they invite God in to their families, and that's where their families sanctify him in time. So think about that today. How are you going to build moments, a rhythm in your week to invite rest? Not just rest for you, but connection as a family. Let our homes become the place where we pass on our faith and our values, because whether we acknowledge it or not, we are. So let's create those moments of rest so that we can work better and sanctify God through our rest and through our work. Have a great day, everyone.